Hello you lot, Miller Corner here and welcome back once again to the ER5. And I was actually going to use this the other day, but then I noticed something a little bit worrying. So here's my ER5 looking pretty cool, and I was actually standing on the driveway washing the Super Seicento, so I thought, you know what, later on I'm going to take my bike out. I looked round at the bike, I caught a glance of the rear tyre, and can you see that? Can you see all the cracks in the sidewall of the tyre? Can you see how that would be really, really dangerous and dodgy? Can you see why I haven't taken the bike out since discovering this? Yeah, my tyre is absolutely covered in cracks in the sidewall. In fact, if you look here, there are plenty of cracks in the tread as well, which would be even more dangerous. But then again, you can understand why. If you have a look here, you can see the timestamp for when these tyres were actually made, and that is 5007, which is the 50th week of 2007. That's right, this is a 13-year-old tyre pretty much, so small wonder there are loads of bloody little cracks in it. And the front tyre's not much better. There's a fair few cracks appearing in the sidewall, and the tread has got a few cracks in various places round it. In short, these tyres need to go in the bin. So that's exactly where they're going to go. And in order to do that, I've actually got to take both wheels off the bike. And in fact, I've obviously got to take the tyres off of the rims. The perfect opportunity then to paint my wheels. In my continued theme of get rid of as much silver stuff as possible on the Kawasaki, those wheels are going to be painted black as well. I've never actually taken any wheels off of a bike before, so you're going to learn with me how to take wheels off the ER5. Right, we're going to start with the back wheel, and as you can probably see, we've got some lighting. It's almost like I'm a professional YouTuber. And the first thing it says to do in the Haynes manual, which yes, is just off screen because frankly I have little to no knowledge of how to do this, it says to remove this R-clip here from what it calls the torque link bolt. So I'm guessing we just pull this chappy out, and indeed, does indeed look a bit like a letter R. Next, we do actually need to remove this nut, I believe. Okay, 14mm is on. I'm genuinely amazed, bearing in mind that this is right down at the floor level and thus gets sprayed with all the mud and dirt and crap, how easy that came off. That can come off. Separate the torque link from the brake panel, it says to do, which is by doing that. Fully unscrew the brake free play adjuster nut from the end of the brake rod, which looks a lot like it's a 10mm, which it is. Oh, no, we're good. That took a surprising amount of effort to crack, but we are off. I hope you're paying attention to where all these are going, because I'm not. So there's two on here. There we go, that is off. Now it also says if you push on the rear brake lever, it should withdraw that from there. It does indeed do that. Straighten the cotton pin in the rear axle nut and remove it. It comes off like so. There we go. Split pin is out. One failing with this particular Haynes manual, it doesn't tell you how big all the nuts are. Definitely not a 19, and it's probably not the 22. So I've got a 23mm here, and it won't even get on there. We have got a spanner. They don't tell you how big this is. I'm telling you it's a 24. I have movement there. There we go. Okay, it's taken some patience and a massive spanner. Andy had to go and find a tool as well. I'd like to stress at this point that you're learning along with me here. If you didn't know how to take off an ER5 rear wheel, now you know. That's now off. Unscrew the rear axle nut and withdraw the axle from the right-hand side. I forgot to mention, this clip plate thing comes off. The axle should then just come out. According to the instructions, this should be coming out right about now, but it is not doing. What are you doing? Trying to take the rear axle out. It says, pull it out. I say, nah.
Let me just slacken off this chain a bit. Right, that chain's nice and slack now. What are you trying to do?
Pull the axle.
It won't come your way, will it?
It says pull it out from the right-hand side. It says pull it out from the right-hand side.
It goes this side, look.
It says pull it out from the right-hand side.
I don't care what it says, it doesn't come that side. Look, come here. I promise you it comes this way.
Who the hell wrote this shit? So it wouldn't have come off if I'd spent all night.
It's never come the other way, yeah, look. That's your axle, right. Now when you pull this out,
yeah,
there's little spaces and things.
Yeah, don't lose those.
Roll the wheel back.
Does that literally just slot in?
Yeah, it's rubber in there. That's a cush drive, that's what takes up the slack when you accelerate.
There you go.
Don't
literally just pulls out.
Right.
Bloody Haynes manual. I'd have sat there all night trying to pull it from the right. Haynes manual discarded, the front wheel removal is less fiddly but more delicate. The main axle bolt gets cracked and undone, requiring a bit more strength than I've got. Cue someone with some muscle. Got it?
Yeah, that's got it.
Next up, it's not going to be able to fit in the shot, but pinch bolt down the bottom of the fork, that's coming off. Imagine that out. With that done, the speedo cable is unscrewed, and then it's time for removal, just as rave mode indicates a low torch battery. Right, ready, so block of wood's under there, that's all good. Just keep going, yeah?
Gently.
With the bike on the centre stand, a piece of wood is put on top of a trolley jack, which then slowly raises the bike underneath the engine. Do your best not to bump or lean on the bike here, and keep everyone's hands and feet well clear. With a few inches of ground clearance, the wheel can be wiggled out, just barely clearing the caliper. Next, the 6 Allen bolts holding the brake disc on are squirted with penetrating fluid, before being shocked with a hammer, carefully cracked and undone with an Allen bit on a ratchet. The disc then lifts off, and the next day both wheels are taken to have the knackered old tyres removed. Right, it's the next day and our wheel has had the crappy, cracked, knackered old tyre taken off. Also, I've completely flattened it down with some Scotch-Brite. There's a couple of little areas that needed filling, and now it's completely dulled down, ready for paint. And there's a couple of things that you have to do on a bike wheel that you don't have to do with a car wheel. For a start, I've put some masking tape around the bearing area there, because you don't really want to paint that if you can avoid it. And also, where the brake shoes go in here, I'm going to be cleaning it up properly with all the dust in there before this goes back on the bike. You'll also note how I've actually mounted it, because obviously you do see both sides of a bike wheel that you don't with a cutter wheel. So what I've done is run the axle through the middle of it, and I've got it on 2 axle stands. How very appropriate. Also, you might notice the lighting studio-esque setup we've got going on. That's because the lights for the house are temporarily turned off while the sitting room is getting decorated, as we mentioned previously. So I've got some big old torches in here, and I'm going to be doing this while I paint it. So without further ado, it's time for another episode of Joe Paints Random Stuff. Joe Paints Random Stuff. Do-do-do. That's right, and on this episode of Joe Paints Random Stuff, we've got the rear wheel from my Kawasaki. You might notice we've only got the rear wheel, not the front one. That's because we haven't got the room or axle stands, quite frankly, to do both at the same time. So one will suffice, and I'll do the other one off camera. You can probably imagine what's going to happen. We've got the lighting set up, so it is a bit like being in a film studio here. I've got my primer, and I've got one gloved hand, so I can grab hold of the wheel and rotate it while I'm painting to hopefully get a more even finish. So without further ado, let's cue the painting and the montage. 3 coats of primer, paint and lacquer, aided with the studio level lighting, sees the dull grey wheel transformed into this. On the left of your screens, an ER5 wheel in that horrible silver, grey, whatever the hell that colour is, and on your right, a Respray gloss black one. How gorgeous does that look? That is so much better than that horrible standard colour. And with the colour that the bike's going to be going, which yes, will be revealed eventually, that is going to go absolutely beautifully. So that wheel's painted and looking awesome, and off camera, that one will be as well. So now we've got the wheels painted, let's talk tyres. These are what I've gone for, Maxxis C6502s. Catchy title there. And I've gone for them in the standard ER5 profiles for the front and the rear, so I've got a 130/70/17 on the back and a 110/70/17 on the front. These are nicely rated in the wet and the dry for road use by ER5 users, and unlike the crappy old tyres we threw away, these ones were actually made in this decade. In fact, they were made in the 51st week of 2019, and that means these are only about 6 months old. That means they're not covered in cracks and they're actually safe to use. So without further ado, let's get these beautiful black tyres on my beautiful black rims. And that is how you paint a bike wheel, from that faded, crappy grey to a much nicer and classier gloss black, and wrapped in some brand new rubber that's not cracked, not split, and not 14 years old. As I said off camera, I will be painting and putting a new tyre on the front wheel as well, and then we can get both of them back on the ER5 in next week's video, once we've fixed something else I found that was worryingly dangerous. Brilliant. The big takeaway from this video is your tyres. Regardless of how much tread you've got, have a look at the actual condition of the rubber. Check for cracks and splits and look at when they were actually made. You can have all the tread in the world, but if the tyre sidewall is split, you may as well have bald tyres for all the good it'll do. And on that unusually safety conscious note from Miller Corner, I'll catch you pretty soon everybody. Thanks for watching and have a good one.